Welcome to the Measure Success podcast, where I talk with top leaders about effective strategies that inspire success. Very excited today to have with us Jon Bassford. He's the founder and CEO of Lateral Solutions and author of the book just recently released, The Curious Leader, Navigating the Power of Asking Questions and Fostering a Culture of Inquiry. On top of that, we're also going to talk about his recent TEDx presentation that just happened, which I'm super excited to learn more about that as well. Jon, welcome to the Measure Success podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Hey, Jon, so I'm just going to start diving into things because I'm always curious to people. You just got off the stage basically at TEDx. So how was that experience?
It's crazy. I have done public speaking before. I have done public speaking at much bigger audiences than what I was in front of for TEDx. But there is a different level of anxiety and excitement and every emotion you can think of going onto a TEDx stage, knowing the potential reach that your message could have. And TEDx is, every TEDx is locally run and organized, but it still has to fit the theme and messaging of TED Talks broadly. And so they're great about working with you through that process and help you fine tune your talk and all that stuff. And I could not have asked for a better day. We all did fantastic. I had a wonderful group that was part of my my TEDx, and it just was a very, very surreal day. Is the only way I know how to describe it.
How long did it take you to prepare for it?
I mean, I applied to this. I actually don't even know exactly when. My guess would probably be in late summer. Got accepted. My guess is October-ish. And from there, it's been one draft or the next. I mean, the number of drafts I saved was 12.
Wow.
But there's a lot of drafts that weren't saved, right? It just because I made small little tweaks, but it comes together little by little. I started very broad on my topic, trying to do too much with it, and then slowly narrowed it down. This TEDx, they wanted your talk to be no more than 9 to 10 minutes, so a little on the shorter scale.
Interesting. So less than the 18-minute one. Interesting.
Yeah. So you really had to fit in a lot of talking in that time without feeling like you're rushing it, right? And kind of put the stories in, put the message in there, put the lessons in there. So it was tough to do at times because there's so much you want to say and you can't say it all, which actually resulted in a much cleaner, succinct talk, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, you're aware of the 18 minutes, like why they do that, right?
Yeah.
Right, because it's basically it's generally as long as most of us can listen to, things, right?
Yep.
And really pay attention. The vast majority of people can hang in there for 18 minutes, but the shorter and shorter, right, is even harder. It's fascinating. Like this podcast will go longer than 18 minutes, but it is intended to be that. It's more of a conversation of, hey, you're sitting by with somebody, having a beer or whatever, right, and having a conversation and learning and getting more understanding. So, Jon, tell us once again. Obviously, this just happened, so I have not had the chance to see your TEDx. Tell me, what was your topic about? What was the 8 minutes that you exploded on?
Yeah, so it takes a little while for these to be released, so it probably won't happen for another 2 to 4 months. That's a little bit up to
good.
TED Talk themselves. They have to go through video editing and approval. But the talk was from burnout to breakthrough: how curiosity ends the DIY dilemma. And TEDx talks today have to be very, very broad to a broad audience. But obviously, there's elements of that from my book where I'm talking about business leaders having the notion that they have to do everything themselves. Everything from the small business owner who doesn't trust anyone with the bookkeeping, yet always gets it wrong themselves, or the executive who thinks all ideas have to come from them and keeps wondering why they get the same results over and over again. So I tied into some of my book themes and my business themes, but also the message was broader to people, to parents, to volunteers, to just people in everyday life. How, let down your guard, let down your ego, ask for help, tap into resources, ideas, and perspectives around you to truly go further.
I'm curious, and once again, because it hadn't been released as of the point of this recording, but what was the response from people who actually got to hear it? How did they respond to you?
Yes, this was a very interesting aspect of preparation in the talk. So me watching my fellow speakers throughout this cohort and them watching me, I don't think any of us truly understood each other's talks until we saw it in person.
Hmm.
And so at the dress rehearsal, I had a lot of speakers and coaches like, I did not understand your Corning, New York COVID story until I saw it live. And I felt the same way about so many people. So there was this initial reaction from everyone to like, I get it now. I get what your talk was about. On top of that, it was very, very well received. The participants, the coaches, the audience. I had two people reach out to me after the talk, and one said, "Hey, we have decided to make some changes in our business because of your talk." Another person said, "Hey, my husband was there. He's a business owner. He has decided to hire a person to do X, Y, and Z after listening to you talk." So apparently, which is the goal of the book as well, right? Is to inspire people to action, to think, be curious about what's possible and how they can grow and change. And the TEDx talk certainly delivered on that. And I hope people feel the same way about the book.
All right, so let's head to the book. So the Curious Leader, and so what are the key, if you were to summarize, not trying to do it once again from a TEDx perspective, but what are the key tenets that you focus on in the book and that you're trying to get across your audience?
Sure. It all starts with the fact that our organizations, companies, nonprofits, whatever it is, they're run by people. And people are creatures of habits and bias and form blinders. And all of these things exist, from a neurological evolutionary stance for reasons, right? There's reasons why if we didn't have habits, we would be paralyzed by every little action we took throughout the day, right? Opening a door, taking a step. We don't think about those, we just do it. But when it comes to our organizations, and because they're run by people, they fall into habits and biases and everything as well. And so to break free from that, you have to create mechanisms to step away from your habits and how you normally do things. And curiosity is the way to do that. And I define a curious leader as requiring three shifts: a shift to a growth mindset, a shift to operational excellence, and a shift to a curious culture.
Okay, that we can talk about those for sure. So let's start with the first one there, which is the growth mindset. Perhaps the one thing, which is the obvious, right? There's the fixed versus growth, but perhaps, a lot of people have heard the concept of growth mindset, but what do you think is the thing that people miss when they're talking about growth mindset?
I think it's, we just get stuck in our current situations and our own limitations and dare to dream beyond that, right? Like I think most people want to grow, want to think bigger, all these things. We just get stuck in our habits. We get stuck in our comfort zones. And again, these are all very, very natural things. The number of times, I'm talking to a prospective client and it's, a family owned business or whatever it is. And they've been around for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And they say to me, "We've been running this business for the last 20 years and things are just fine. We don't need your help." I'm like, great. And I hope everything works out for you because you're going to stay there, right? If that's the mindset, then they're not people who are going to work with me in what we do, right? So we're looking for people who are like, I want to take things to the next level. I want to grow. I want to change. I want to innovate. I want to take a $5 million company to a $10 million company. And to do that, the first thing you have to do is believe that it's possible. Again, I have, friends and family in my life who just have very, very fixed mindsets on who they are and what they're capable and what they can achieve in life and can't dare to fathom anything more. So first thing is daring to dream, right? Daring to dream that you can become a $10 million company, a $100 million company, and then having the curiosity to take the steps towards those actions.
Okay, so now we'll head to that next part, which is operational. And I love that, right? Because one thing is have an idea, but an idea is honestly useless unless you move getting towards your destination of where you're trying to get towards, right? It's a shame, right? It's a shame that it happens to all of us, right? And many different things. So once again, when I say these things, I'm not talking, speaking from, a lot of us, when we say things, we don't want to throw rocks out of a glass house, as they say, right? It's like, look, we all have failed certain things, but what's important is, have we tried? Have we even made an effort? Often I think what you said once again in the beginning of the growth versus fixed mindset is like, often it's like you always stay in your box and you're comfortable in your box and you go, and it's funny, John, I'm the same thing. Like if somebody says everything's going fine and we don't want to change, I'm like, hallelujah. And I'm glad you're not paying attention to AI. Right? Because maybe we'll talk in a couple of years when you're not getting leads anymore or whatever it might be, right? As a result of things that they're not seeing. But now let's go to this point of operational excellence. define that. What does operational excellence mean?
If I may, real quick, I want to comment on something you just said there, which is I'm a big believer of the ancient Taoist philosopher Ted Lasso when he said the line, "Be curious, not judgmental." I'm totally with you on that. Like I don't, when I'm talking about these things, I want to be inspirational. I think that's one of the problems with a lot of the influencer out there, the gurus on business, entrepreneurship, billionaire mindset, is that there's a tendency to insult people into abundance. You're a loser if you don't achieve X. And I never want to come across that way at all, right? I want you to see for yourself that you're capable of more. You're not a loser where you are now. I just want you to see that you're capable of more. So I just want to comment on that real quick. And then, so I define operational excellence.
So actually, John, let's stop, because I actually want to pull on that for just a moment, because I think you said something that's really, really important. And it's interesting. It's why what's called the Measure Success podcast is it's okay for somebody to have $1 billion goal. It's okay for somebody to have $100 million goal. It's okay for somebody to have a $10 million. It's okay for somebody to have $1 million goal. And it's even okay if somebody says, you know what, I want to have one store and I'm going to have it be the best restaurant in this one corner, and I never want to go beyond that. These are okay things. It's okay to have these parts of success. And sometimes like that same restaurant has lines going around the corner, right? Because they've figured out something in their menu, something in their service, something in their quality that people want to go to every single day. And people are like, it's sort of like the great barbecues, when people are like, down in Texas, and it's like, oh no, it's 11 a.m. and all the food's gone. It's like, what? It's like, it's all gone. It's like, no, yeah, it is, because like we created something great. So I think that's important to begin with, right? Once again, everyone's listening, but I'd also say this: we are capable of more. And we do often hold ourselves back. And hey, let's not be ashamed. Let's look at it as something to be excited about, right? That we are not stuck. We are not stuck. And where we came from, we're not. That is probably the one thing that, forgive me here. And once again, I try to be apolitical, but here you live near the DC area where there's a ton of stuff going on right now, and I am not going to talk about political, but what I will say is there's a reason why people want to come into this country, is because there is opportunity regardless of where you came from. Whether you're upbringing, whether you grew up in a mansion or whether you grew up in a shack, right? We all have the opportunity if we're willing to go and strive towards it, right? So anyway, I just had to comment on that, because I like you, I get excited. I came from very little, with practically nothing, but I also don't have $1 billion, but that doesn't mean that I'm not happy, right? Because this whole show is about, there's a lot of people who have $1 billion and they're not happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I'm from the same way. I'm from a small town in the Midwest, humble beginnings, if you will. Not that I'm a billionaire or millionaire now, but like, yes, I have the goals and dreams of having multiple, $1 million businesses. And that's my strive towards those goals, as a speaker, as an author, as a consultant. And I have, a sibling who his goal in life is to make a decent amount of money, spend time with his family. That's what he wants. And that doesn't make him any less successful than I want to be. Yeah. People look at purpose and goals in life as some esoteric or external thing. Purpose in life is, what do you want out of it? Yeah. Whatever you want in life, go achieve that. That's your purpose. That's your dream. That's your goal. And your success is whether you're dedicated to that and how well you perform that, not a dollar figure.
And I'll take it a step further. I've had not too many, because there's only so many of them, but I've had a couple billionaires on the show. And I remember when I'm saying, my success is that I get to walk my daughter to work each day. Sorry, to school. I get to walk her to school. I have the freedom and the flexibility to walk her to school each day. That was his measure of success, right, in his personal life. So, all right, so let's stop here. Now, let's go to the part of operational excellence, which is, to me, is the secret sauce behind any great strategy, any great opportunity, any great goal of where we're trying to strive and go towards. So when you do operational excellence, what's different? What's different than perhaps what other people are doing to help people get out of their existing place to go somewhere to a new destination?
So I define operational excellence as an organization's ability to move toward their intended results as efficiently and effectively as possible. That's the goal, right? So what we do differently from my consulting business is what we do different is a lot of people, when they want to help an organization grow, they might have an audit process like we do, et cetera, but they have a prescribed medicine they're going to give you. It's boosting your sales, it's boosting your marketing, it's helping you hire this position or that position. What we come in and do is we help you get curious, again, the curious leader, about where your operations are, where your decision making framework is, where your culture is, where your strength and maturity of your operations are, where the efficiency is. So we're gathering data about your organization on where it is today to find the holes and gaps that you need to fill to go to the next level.
All right. So, what do you think? Is one of the biggest challenges in the operational excellence part when a business owner or their management team, they're stuck. What are they typically getting stuck on when they're trying to change something to get to their destination?
So I think there's a couple. I think that the stuck happens because of things we talked about earlier: the habits, the bias, the blinders. I think the biggest hurdle that most CEOs, owners run into is they know they want to change, they know there needs to be change, but there is this fear factor that sits in, and all they might talk about wanting to change, but do they take the steps necessary? Do they really analyze their organization, where it is, where they want to go, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and why they're doing it that way? They don't take those full steps to fully do it. And again, I think that's because of comfort and fear and all kinds of things that, again, that are natural. But that's why it's so important that if you don't have that analytical mind to do this yourself, or have someone on your team that can do it for you, it's really important to kind of step out of that and find someone who can, right? That can come in objectively, review your organization, help you identify those blinders and blind spots to move forward. And I think that's really where people get stuck, is just not taking a true intentional action to uncover these areas and then the steps to correct them.
Yeah. It's interesting. One of the books I have down here is Jon Bassford, which is who wrote Start, and he's written several books, but that's one of them. And it's amazing how often that we'll have the great idea and we even have the plan, but we won't start. We will stall out. Matter of fact, I've done some surveys beforehand, which only about 20% of organizations start their strategic plan on time. So let's talk about that. How do you get somebody to go from 0 to 1, right? It's sometimes the hardest thing is you think about a rocket taking off. The most fuel is spent, right, on the initial just getting off the ground, right? It's that first part. What do you do to help people to get get off their, whatever it is, right, to get moving?
Yeah, like I'm an operator, not a marketing, not a salesperson, right? So I'm a very, very straightforward. So doing the kind of, we're going to help you 10x your company, like those type of statements are very, very hard for me to do. Because at the end of the day, I also know that no matter what advice we give, no matter how good our plan is, if the person isn't willing to execute on that, we're not going to be able to help. But I do tell our people this is like, look, if you work with us, you take, even if you take the audits and don't have us do fractional work and just run it themselves, you're gonna at least have bottom line 10% increase, or at least decrease your operation costs by 10%, or decrease your time in operations by 10%. I think if any owner, any operator hears that they can get 10% more money, 10% more time, that's the key. That because it doesn't sound too crazy, right? I'm not going to help you 10x your business in 2 weeks. I'm going to help give you back at least 10% time, 10% money, whatever it may be. And so that kind of like gets them thinking, right? It's a realistic number, but can have profound impacts on their business. So it starts there. And then when we go through a structured process that's not drawn out 6, 8, 12 months with multiple meetings, multiple different consultants, and we do it in a very succinct time and can deliver them that 12-month roadmap in 4 weeks, that goes a long way in that proof of concept, right? Because we're not asking you for a 12-month commitment till we start showing you the roadmap. And it's not one of these just kind of freebie, take this call with us, we'll give you this thing for free. This is in-depth analysis of your business, and you can take this and run with it make some meaningful changes, or we can help you execute that over the next 3 to 6 months with the goal of having those meeting those metrics of the 10% within 12 months.
I've been fortunate to be a part of a lot of lean transformations in companies, like that true concept of the old Toyota way, help implementing that. And just literally yesterday, I was in with the client, and one of literally our old lean consultants now is an operator for a company that we're working with. And my favorite part, John, was this. One of the manufacturing assembly women who's been involved with the company for quite a while. And she said this, she said, I didn't think it was going to work. It was awesome. I didn't think this was going to work. But man, you proved me wrong. And it's awesome now. It's awesome because we are so much more effective. And just out of curiosity, John, this is going from batch to one piece flow from a manufacturing, assembly, for those who are familiar with that concept. But it was so cool to see her honesty, which is, I don't buy this, to doing it quickly. Like, they didn't take a long time to figure this out. This was like a relatively quick, and that was the key. And now they're hungry for more, right? That's what I like what you're doing, John, is you get some wins, you get a 10% improvement, you get this, it starts to become, I want to eat more of this candy, right? I want to eat more of this opportunity, because when you start saving time, you start making more money. I mean, 10% savings to the bottom line. Got 40 Accounting. That's one of our businesses, CPA firm. And the reality is most companies don't make much money at all. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you can improve the bottom line by 10%, that's a big deal.
And most people underestimate how, when they think of change and growth, they think it requires these big capital expenditures, big, redoing the org chart and making these massive changes to the organization. It's these small little operational changes. I worked with a marketing agency, 21st century marketing agency. Majority of the people that work there are under the age of 35. The owners are under the age of 45. But I was working with them, and I went to them and said, guys, like, your receivable timing is horrible. I mean, they were averaging 90 to 120 days. I was like, you guys have got to, like,
that's awful,
accept ACH payments as an option. Like, that's the easiest, simplest way to not spend a lot of money on the transaction with credit card fees, and to get the money quicker. And they were so afraid to put their bank account and routing number out there. And the COO I was working with, I was like, we're roughly the same age. I was like, when our parents went to the grocery store when we were growing up, what did they do? They wrote a check,
which had their routing number and checking account number on it.
You're giving a check to the client is the same thing you give a stranger writing a check to them. Like, why is this a secretive thing? So then COVID hit and the mail stopped. So they were hesitant with my idea, but then they had to do it.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And they saw an enormous shift in the receivables. I mean, seriously, going from an average of 90 plus days, 30 to 60 days. Again, did that add 10% to their bottom line? No, but that improved their cash flow by 100%.
Well, yeah. And there's another measurement, which is order to cash.
Yeah. Right.
And folks, hey, anybody's a business owner here. Actually, anybody has their own personal checkbook, right?
Right.
Sorry, that's old personal checkbook. Who has a personal checkbook anymore? But yeah, I'm saying the concept of it, when you can get cash, turn it over quickly through the company, bring it in and faster. It's amazing how many companies go bankrupt due to cash flow issues. They're actually theoretically profitable, but they have, this is one of the biggest challenges John have when people work with small companies, work big co. They get so excited, they get the account. And of course, what do they tell them? It's 90-day terms, right? So they get these 90-day terms, and then it's like, and it's even beyond 90 days because it took so long to get the contract signed. And then they get the contract signed and it moves through, and then they get to the invoice, and then the clock doesn't even start till then, right? Et cetera, et cetera. You increase that 60 days of cash. I mean, most companies don't have 2 months of cash, never mind 4 months of cash, right? So having that cash and bringing it down, right? If you can bring something from 90 days to on average 15 days, that is a game changer for a company.
Yep. Yeah, I have a couple of clients that work with their main clients are big tech. And, again, you're talking right, the 90 days plus. And even if you get it in 45 days, you're giving up 2% to get it paid early.
That's right. Don't you love that? They're like, hey, congratulations, you've been approved. And if you want us to pay now, it's 2%.
Yeah.
And other than a sliding scale, sometimes it's only 1.4% now.
Yeah. It sounds sexy to work with these big Fortune 500 companies that are going to pay you, right? Because they have the money. But it's not easy. I mean, it's a lot of work to do that. So like the secret obviously is, you got to keep those coming in. So like the first one hopefully is tough. But then if you keep that cycle of being able to keep these contracts and money coming in, it does get easier, but you got to stay on top of that and manage that. We had one of my clients had an issue where they changed something happened and something got broken in our profile in their payment portal, and an email was going to a former employee, so we weren't getting it anymore. And it took nearly 3 months to get names and emails updated, a new bank account approved in a new profile. That's outside of the payment terms, right? It took 3 months just because of these enterprise systems that they work with to just have you as a vendor. So it gets tough at times for sure.
Absolutely. Okay. We do have to hit the third piece of your book. So why don't you start talking about that now?
Sure. So what I always say is, unless you are the lead singer of a one-person band, the mindset, the operational excellence are great, but it's never going to get you to the finish line. You got to bring your team along with you. And the concept of a curious culture, it kind of pulls from a couple different concepts. Obviously, the servant leadership mentality is in there, right? Of serving your employees and getting to know them and being relatable to them, that sort of thing. But a lot of it also comes from the notion of psychological safety. Mm-hmm. This was a study that Google did called Project Aristotle. They were trying to determine what characteristics made a team successful. They had their hypotheses of intelligence, degrees, DEI, all these things. And after, hours upon hours of surveys and interviews, et cetera, they came back with psychological safety. And what that simply means is that you've created an environment that allows the team to collectively exchange ideas, push back, point out when things are wrong, all the things that typically don't happen in an organization because people don't feel that viewpoint, that opinion may not be wanted at all. And if it's allowed, may not be respected. So creating an environment where that truly gets to flow and people can just share ideas, connect, and being curious about all aspects of your organization. And the person working as a junior employee in accounting has a lot different look into how marketing works than the CEO and the VP of marketing. Everyone has this unique insight into what the organization is doing. We're no longer in factory lines of work doing one job, 300 times a day. We're all connected and see things in a different way, and allowing that junior person who has a unique perspective of, hey, if we actually change this, we could get paid twice as fast, right? Like that. That's how simple it is. Like the junior person saying, "Hey, look, I see a problem here, and I think there's a solution for it." Having an environment where they feel safe to do that, in an environment where the management will accept that, look into it, see if it's a good idea, and possibly run with it if it is.
I think that's good. No, great insights there. So I'll ask you, in terms of perhaps your business or perhaps businesses that you're working with, how do you measure success?
Sure. For me as an entrepreneur, as a person, my goal is to always keep growing. Again, the curiosity piece, all that kind of became a brand for the book and my business. It's something that's been there my entire life. It's, being able to take on opportunities and push myself is, I get antsy when I feel I'm being stagnant and things are staying still. My goal is to always grow. And so that's what I bring to my client work and my consulting is, like, my goal is to help challenge the status quo, remove those habits, remove those blinders, and helping my clients grow through curiosity and through operations, both, right? Both combination there. So that's my goal. And right now we've made some shifts in my business, moving away from me just being a solopreneur, that's a fractional COO into building more of an agency with this audit process and other fractional COOs who can stay with a client long term. But the goal really is I want to help as many organizations as possible become curious about their organization, the ways it can grow, and give them the roadmap to get there.
Yeah, so you're applying the principles that you help teach others with to yourself, right? And it's funny. It's the kind of classic. Once again, in accounting firm, it's like we do it the last, right? So our tax return gets done last type thing, and that's what happens often is we don't even take care of our own business. But if you can learn to create standards, right, behind what's taking place, but also having a standard of questioning, which is the difference, right? There's a lot of great tools out there, and I won't pick on any ones that are out there that are really well known and for good reason. They've been successful. Sometimes it's a standard, but what's missing is learning and facilitating and recognizing it's not the standard is there to help pique curiosity to really solve the real problems that are going on, not just what we perceive it to be, right? And so, it's fun. I like it that you have that, once again, that mindset, but teaching the people you're working with that also have that same mindset is you almost have to teach them if they don't intuitively have it, right? Of like, they gotta be the best replica of you, so to speak, of carrying on. I'm kind of curious, how are you planning to train that? So when you are bringing people on and adding people to your team, what are you going to do? Obviously you have a book to help, standardize it from one perspective, but like day to day, like how are you going to teach the people, like new CEOs that are coming in to help operate a company when you're not there day to day to be great at it?
Yeah, for the other fractional CEOs I'm bringing on, I look for qualities that I believe have served me well in my operation roles. To a certain degree, you have to be a jack of all trades. You got to know a little bit about HR, a little bit of marketing, accounting. You got to know a little bit about a lot of things, or even a decent amount about a lot of things. And so that's kind of the first thing. And then I'm looking for growth, change-minded people, right? If you're analytical and you can break things down and you can solve problems and never say the word, I don't know. That's the biggest thing throughout my career. I have never said, I don't know, or I can't do that. My answer is always, let me go look into that. I'll get back to you. And the answer may be, I've done every research possible, and this is what we need to do over here, which means I'm not doing it. But I've never said I can't do it. I found the solution, not that I didn't do it. And so that's how I look at the fractional COO and who I decide to work with. The CEOs and clients, the goal really is, obviously, we're helping set the initial framework. We're helping analyze, pinpoint those holes, give you that growth roadmap. But our real goal is help you execute on those, but it's also working on that mindset. It's working on the culture piece, because our goal is not for you to grow while we're working with you. We want to help you create a system that's going to allow you to continue that feedback loop, those solution loops through your entire team, through your management team, making sure all that's aligned, and continue this kind of audit process, this analytical process, day after day, not year after year. There might be a time that, hey, look, we need a refresh in a year or two to come back and audit us again. But the goal is create those mechanisms within your team, within your management style, so that this process continues without us.
Yeah, teaching people how to fish, right, is so powerful, right? And it's versus just fishing for them, and having that mindset, I think, is, once again, is fantastic. So you mentioned, you talked about your business. You talked about, you actually give your own self, hey, what makes me happy is being continuously curious. So I'm obviously, once again, we're going to recommend everybody who's listening here to pull out order your book, The Curious Leader, and Navigating the Power of Asking Questions and Fostering Culture of Inquiry. So I encourage everybody who's listening to this to go order your book. When you're not recommending your new book now and handing it off to potential clients, what is a book that you typically recommend to others that you've read that's really inspired you?
I do a lot of reading on mindfulness and self-development, probably even more so than business development, because I think improving ourselves and having the confidence to do things, and again, moving away from fear, moving away from doubt, which are all very natural sequences. I'm going to throw a book out there that probably might seem a little odd from a business talk, but a book that truly changed my life and began a different kind of self-development path for me was a book called The Soul Without Shame. And what that book is about is all about what the superego is, why it exists in our head, why it constantly is telling us you're not worthy, don't do this, stay safe. I was a very, very confident person. I've had very much success. I have an MBA, I have a law degree, was running a $10 million organization by the time I was 36 years old, launched a consulting firm, but I still had these doubts. I still had those thoughts in my head of, Jon, you're nothing because you haven't achieved the billionaire status. You haven't been a multi-millionaire yet. And we all get those thoughts. And again, going back to that earlier talk about some of the influencers and entrepreneurs out there in their talk, they all have it too. They just pretend, right?
That's
whether
right.
you're a billionaire or you are living paycheck to paycheck, every single person has doubts. And what this book does is really break down why those exist from an evolutionary biological standpoint. It helps you attack them, right? And you can't always make them stop, but you can recognize what's causing them, and it helps you create mechanisms to remind yourself that you are capable of so much more and to not listen to that little voice.
Yeah. And we're just going to repeat the title of the book one more time.
Soul Without Shame.
Soul Without Shape. Okay, good recommendation. That's the first time. We've done over 200 podcasts, and that's never been recommended. So thank you so much for putting that in there. Just one more question, and then we'll wrap it up here. What is like one habit that you do consistently to help make sure you're performing at your best?
So again, with that book, it really kind of began this kind of spiritual mindfulness journey for me. And what I do now is basically every night I read some kind of self-development book, and I meditate before going to bed. I meditate when I first wake up in the morning. I tend to like brush my teeth and all that stuff first, but other than that, before I start my day, and it's hard sometimes, but I really even try to don't look at your phone till you've done your mindfulness stuff, right? It goes a long, long way. But I'm an active mind person. My mind is always churning and thinking, and the next step for me, my business, my life, everything, and how can I help a client? And it's so important to slow that down, to center yourself and create this blank space. Meditation sometimes gets this notion that it's about these affirmations, and it's really about quieting your mind so where there's nothing in there, and just stopping all that dialogue that happens. And it is made a huge, huge difference in tackling the superego, in moving beyond those self-doubts, is just quieting the mind, reminding yourself at points in the meditation, that what you are capable and who you are, and believing in that. So the meditation aspect has been huge for me.
That's perfect. Jon, how can people connect and learn more about what you're doing?
Sure. So I'll give you two websites and then also give you a quick way to get a hold of us. So my consulting website is think-lateral.com. And my personal brand is Jon Bassford, Jon Bassford, Bassford.com. And then real quick, if you text the word chapter to 33777, we will send you a PDF of the first chapter of the book. So feel free to do that. We'll ask for your email, obviously, and we'll get that over to you. And obviously, we hope that it sparks your interest to go out and buy the book. But that's the quickest way to really get engaged with us and see what the book's about.
Well, Jon, once again, congratulations. I know it's a huge effort to get a book out. So congratulations, get that even bigger. Another big effort to concurrently get a TEDx talk going with that. My sincere congratulations to you and everything that you've done so far.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me on the show.
You bet. If you're listening, I hope you've enjoyed the show. I encourage you to go out and learn more about what Jon is doing. And as we always like to say, wishing you the very best and measuring your success. Have a great day.